Okay. Okay. That was, I just have to thank you all for that Zoom room the other day. That was fabulous. I don't know if you loved it, but I did. And it just set whatever it does in my mind, it set things on yeah, just all I can say is the downloads come quickly. That's probably the best that way I can say it. And so today, so what we talked about last time, whenever that was not to pay attention to your story. That the young people I am seeing in the world that are getting this don't buy into their stories. Now, and I'm just going to point this out, not that any of this makes any, this is not true. This is just, with the way my mind works. These people are apparently younger people, 19, 20, 21. I'm 72. I've had a lot more years to tell myself my story. So now, rather than just a belief, it's now a deep rut that I have moved into and furnished quite well. So, not believing my story takes more to clean it up. Okay. Their stories aren't the deep ruts that I have in my mind. And that's a part of the healing process that we're all in with the mind training, is to just undo all of this nonsense that we have quite convincingly told ourselves, and we bought into hook, line, and sinker. Okay. So as a result of that Zoom, and I came away higher than a kite. It was just like, wow, this is great. This is great. And then the download was deal with the biggest belief that most everybody on the planet believes in, and it's the scariest one of all, death. So we're going to talk about death today, because if I can, I'm going to take you quantum also. And a lot of people don't even know what quantum is. So let me just try and there is no objective world outside of our consciousness. And this, again, the first, 15 lessons in the Course in Miracles is attempting to address this, but most of us, go through those first 15 lessons going, what the hell is Jesus talking about? Well, here's the deal. We give everything the meaning that it has for us. I know you've heard this before, but let's really sink into this. Just like our life story that has resulted in us reacting to the apparent movie we're watching. That it's all a belief. That life story is a belief. And the biggest one in that life story is it ends. And we call that death. So I really want to cover lesson 167 today. There is one life that I share with God. I know you've all heard this too, but now let's really put this into some pointed perspective. I am a loving thought in the mind of God, right? Yeah, I can go along with that. Okay, so there is one life that I share with God. Oh, okay, yeah. It's called love and innocence and, all of those joy and all those fabulous terms. God does not believe. The operative word in believe is L-I-E, be lie. okay? God does not believe in death. We made that up. A gazillion years ago, we made this up. And this is one of the reasons why the crucifixion causes so many people disturbance, because Jesus supposedly died. He succumbed to death, right? Yeah, makes sense. But this is the giant magic trick that Jesus is attempting to debunk. The mind that we're working on here, and all of you I know understand the mind. It's where all these thoughts come up that create us crazy, and we have to go through and try and unfold the knots. The mind is eternal because we're a loving thought in the mind of God. God does not believe in death. And it's very clear in A Course in Miracles. At some point, you lay the body down. Guess what's still there? The mind. The mind cannot die. It cannot die. This is the whole crucifixion. This is Jesus, what Jesus was attempting to get across to us. And I'll just say this. In the parable of Calico, I was scared shitless when they said you're dying, okay? I had more fear come up in me than I ever thought possible. It was paralyzing fear. Oh my God, I've got to get the will done. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to take care, find homes for the animals. I mean, I was living like death was not only possible, it was imminent. Okay. Now, I was also committed to mind training. So for the past 12 years, since I had that process initiated, I've been debunking all my beliefs. And I had to debunk this belief in death. And a part of it, a huge part of it, was I had to see God as a friend, not the enemy. Because I felt like if I died, God was abandoning me. Okay. And oh man, I mean, I'm talking like, it's like I just woke up one day and this happened. No, this was a long process. Okay. There were years that were spent in the inquiry of this. But what I know to be true is I'm watching a movie and it's all interpreted in my mind. I make everything up. I have a life, I have animals, I have a house, I have a relationship, I have, it's happy or sad, it's good or bad. I make money, I don't make money. I mean, all of these are just the stories we tell ourselves. And if you tell yourself these stories enough, you really believe them. And the biggest one is that death is possible. And it's funny, I've had a chance to work with many that have, quote unquote, lost the physical presence of someone they loved. And I don't say this to all because all aren't ready to hear this, but I'm really, yeah, you're the advanced mind training group, guys. You are, you're in the high levels. You're in the PhD program of mind training. And these people would come to me in various states of grief And I didn't want to discourage their grief. And I tell them, keep having the grief as long as you need to, but I need to tell you one truth. They haven't gone anywhere. Because as soon as you think, and you can do this right now, think of somebody that's passed in your life. Guess what? They're there. Because you make it up. And your mind is eternal. So as soon as you think, it becomes real. And believe me, I did so much deep cleaning on this one. The mind is not in our bodies. The mind doesn't exist in our bodies. The best way I can tell you this is it really is like a radio, okay? It really is like a radio. We have antenna because you can be thinking, okay. I want to get too far away from my thought. You know, I used to, in my, the parable of Calico as a chiropractor, I did applied kinesiology. Some of you might know what that is. It's muscle testing, strong muscle, and then muscle goes weak, depending on what you're touching, talking about, whatever. And I did this to people as an experiment all the time. I said, think strong, and their muscle would be just rock solid. And then I'd say, think weak, and their muscle would just go. Just go. And you can do this on a friend. It's a great party game. If you go to parties, it's a great party game. Because what we think, we make real. Okay? So thinking of death, we make it mean a lot. And the reality is, and I know this just because there are those that I have worked with that have done a lot of mind training. And when I say this to them, they get it immediately. Oh my God. And it's basically they're in grief about losing the form of someone in their life. And I'll say they haven't gone anywhere. And they know it is immediately true. No, they haven't. And I tell them, I said, this is where you get a chance to talk to them, share with them, tell them how much you love them, be with them. If tears come, great. It's not about not grieving. It's about just knowing the truth. They haven't gone anywhere because they were all, like we are, loving thoughts in the mind of God. You can't disappear from God's mind. Doesn't matter how much you hate God. God doesn't leave. People leave. So this is, if you can really sit with this one, let this one just roll around a bit. And you can read lesson 167. There is one life that I share with God. Ideas leave not their source. I know you've probably all heard this. Ideas leave not their source. So all these thoughts that we're thinking are ideas. And the truthful ideas are just love. Those are God. That's our God brain. Thinking love. They can't disappear because we are God. But now we have this human side, this egoic side that's very vulnerable to beliefs. It can easily get swayed, and the ego wants you to suffer as much as possible. So this whole concept of death brings up the grim reaper and fear and sadness and grief and, a whole host of things. And if you can just, when you think about death, not that you're not going to have emotions about it, I don't want to shut down anybody's process, but I do want you to see we don't have to suffer if we choose to see this idea of death is impossible. We are eternal. How many times does it say that in the Course in Miracles? We're eternal. Well, the form is not eternal, but the mind is. The mind is eternal. That which we're all using right now in this Zoom room, the thoughts that are going through your mind right now is eternal. Now, this can be disturbing for many because we don't like ourselves very much. And I was one of these people. I thought death would finally give me some peace, rest in peace. Oh my God, thank God, death is done. It's like in high school, boy, I did not want to be here. I think I tried suicide in high school 5 times. It was disturbing at best for my parents. God bless them. But I didn't want to be here. And I thought if I died, I could enter heaven. I could be home. That's what I thought. But the reality is, it doesn't work that way. Heaven is a state of mind I choose now, in this present moment. I don't have to wait to get into heaven. I'm either in heaven right now or I'm suffering, and I'm in ego's, neighborhood. Okay. This is from lesson 167. I want to read it. It's just a short paragraph. Everything in time and space is a belief in separation. Everything, really, write this down if you can't hear it. It's understandable. Everything in time and space is a belief in separation. That's why these stories, our life stories, are not helpful. Guess what? They're in time and space. I was born, I turned 1, then I turned 2. 3 wasn't a good year, 4 was better. It's a timeline of the lives we call whoever we call ourselves. So everything in time and space is a belief in separation. We came here because we had a tiny mad idea that we could do this better. We had everything. But then, oh, someone in the embryo next to us said, God, I think I could make more money and be happier. Good idea. Good idea. Okay, I'm not going to get too far away, but there was one thought I had when I was in college. This was a long time ago, okay? There were no eating disorders back when I was in college. But in my dorm, there was a young woman in another dorm that would come to the cafeteria and eat copious amounts of food. 2 desserts and 3, and I was just like, God, and I was so weight conscious, and that was my issue anyway. I thought, what the fuck is she doing? How can she not put on any weight? And a friend of mine said, oh, you don't know? She goes back to the dorm and throws it all up. Okay. And what did my mind say? Great idea. This is sick, but it's true. I remember distinctly. I thought, oh, great idea. First time I had ever heard of bulimia, and I thought, oh, that might just work. I could lose weight. All right. And that's the way ideas work. But it's all about separating further and further and further from the truth of who we are, which is a loving thought in the mind of God. Okay? Back to the lesson. Everything in time and space is a belief in separation. All, to bold that one, all sounds and sights are projections in the mind. And then we can choose to believe them or not believe them, which is what we do. Oh, that's a good sound. Oh, that's a bad sound. Oh, this is a good sight. That's a bad sight. And so we have a very discerning mind, egoic mind, that allows us to believe certain things and not believe others. And we all have different scripts and we all believe certain things and not others. We don't have to agree on them. What we have to agree on that we're making it up. All sounds and sights are projections in the mind. There is, the last sentence, there is no world apart from what you think. That's Jesus. You have to believe me. This is Jesus. That's why I love A Course in Miracles. It's like, wow, that's interesting. But if you can really sit with it and start seeing your whole world is determined by thought. And then we attach this is a good thought, that's a bad thought, this is an okay thought. Well, I'll wait and see if anyone else has any other ideas on that thought. It's exhausting. And that's why once we get rid of that monkey mind that someone coined here in this room, I can't remember who it was, but it's a good word. That monkey mind is just a series of us saying, yep, I'm going to believe that. Nope, I'm not going to believe that. Yep, I'm going to believe that. When I'm saying all, I'm not, Jesus is. Everything in time and space is a belief, B-E, capital L-I-E, in separation. So what we're attempting to do is quiet the monkey mind. Get it to shut up. You know, I mean, one of my favorite times for me was, oh, I did this so often. I just say stuff out loud without realizing I was saying it out loud, which is actually good news because I wasn't believing there was anyone around me. But I'll never forget, there was a time I just said, everybody shut up, sit down. And I was just walking in the park. But I believed it because it was noisy. My mind was noisy. And it wasn't being helpful. So if we can just today, I know this is a big topic and I'm more than happy to go into more detail with it, but I think for right now, I'm going to just end it in that figures come and go, okay, in this movie that we really think is real. The reality is they're just here to serve us in these lessons. And I know some of you in the last Zoom session, after we quit the recording, we're talking about different things that were going on that were the same lesson. Okay? So it's like the figures will come and go to just serve us in getting the lesson. And if we don't get it with one person, we'll get it with someone else. It's like, you know, this whole thing with relationships. I just love relationships. You know, if you can't get it with one relationship, okay, we're getting rid of them. They're out, they're gone. And the next person you fall in love is exactly the same person. I mean, they look different, but they have the same issues that would trigger me. Okay? So it's like we have to really be with everything in time and space are my projections of separation. And it's not like they're gonna disappear, but we can address them with prayer, the Holy Spirit, to see them differently, to learn the lesson that I would learn from these figures and scenes that are coming up. Okay? So with that, we're going to say goodbye to the Zoomers or the YouTubers. Bye, YouTubers.